What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and today I am joined by the legend himself, Luffy D Monkey JK. You might know him as Rick Master Flash, and he is our third place, securing his world invite from Nationals, piloting none other than the red green Luffy leader. How's it going?
Going great. Glad to be here.
Excited to have you on. Incredibly excited to talk about the deck here, of course, and this leader, which I've been a big fan of since they revealed it. I just felt like at the time, of course, Emu and Ace were just too overtuned for the deck to really be able to shine. But like if those two decks didn't exist, I was always a fan of this deck. And then we, of course, get some new additions that I'm excited to talk about as well. But before we jump in, do you have your matchups from the tournament?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. We'd love to kind of just, I'm sure the people always ask me, like, what were the matchups? If you could just run through your matchups for day one and day two and just give us like a little brief overview. Did you win? What information you have? Did you have dice, this and that? And any key moments that might have really sparked in those games, or if it was just kind of textbook W.
Yeah, for sure. I can go through them. So for day one, our first opponent was Ace. We did win that game, and that game, I remember we lost the die roll, so we went first, and we had the decent carry, if I remember, and we mostly won because basically our normal game plan, which I guess would be a lot to like explain in like a few seconds, but I would say it was pretty comfortable. And so yeah, and then our next opponent was Purple Dofi. We won the die roll on that one, and we chose to go second. We did win that game too. I actually don't remember that much from that game, I'm not gonna lie.
It's all good.
But we went second, and I imagine we just played like our curve. I honestly have no idea because I do not remember that game. And then our third game was Jinbei, which we also won the die roll for that one, and we won that game. That game I remember. So Jinbei is like one of our tougher matchups because of blue, and they play removal stuff. I do remember that they didn't have Jozu or Law on curve. Or I guess yeah, Jozu or Law on curve. I mean, they're on the first curve, so it's like not their hard curve anyways.
Mm.
But they chose this once on 9, and then they did have the gym base, but it was like already kind of late because like normally that matchup is bad because like claw bounce and Josie bounce on 4 and 6, and then they were like super behind, but they didn't have those on those turns, and then from there it wasn't that bad if I remember. And then our fourth game, we're still undefeated to this point. We played against a Yellow Luffy. We won the die roll, so we went second. This game was actually extremely close, even though Yellow Luffy is pretty favored for us. They played it really well, and basically it came down to last turn. They actually got us low enough that we only win, or they need exactly 9 Kasbani to win, but they didn't have it.
Mm.
Lucky for us. And so, and yeah, it's basically what happened, because yeah, they were in the point where I guess technically they didn't really have to go for a game, but like we had a really high chance unless their triggers were like insane following turn, and they went for a game without the Bonnie, and it just wasn't enough.
Got it.
And then our fifth game was a Mihawk. We lost the die roll. This game was actually like really, it was the only game that we faced the same person in Top Cut. With Samsung, and but yeah, we lost the die roll, and our hand was like, so this was like a really, we were on winning streak to this point, so I was like, just like, okay, we're on winning streak, I'm gonna keep things good. My opening hand was double round table. I was like, okay, I have to keep this hand, even though the rest of the hand was pretty bad.
Mm.
And turns out I probably should mulligan because we just like did not find a lot. Like,
Ah,
did not find a lot of stuff. And then Thompson played it really well. They didn't play until round table, so I actually had no opportunity to use round table. My hand was terrible, and I just got rolled.
got
Oh,
it.
because we also lost the die roll too, so it was just like all bad.
Mm.
And that was our first loss of the day. And then we faced the Jinbei, and that was our second loss of the day. And they basically went second, and they logged us. They Josu'd us. They Josu'd us again, and then they Jinbei'd us. So it
Classic.
was just one of those. We just get bounced, and we're like, okay, yeah, this is not our game. Go next. And then our seventh game was against UP Luffy, which is kind of a tougher matchup, because they're blue. But it was actually pretty interesting. I actually do remember a decent amount. So we found a Tashigi with Garp, and we played the Garp, or not the Garp, the Tashigi. And I think we were on the first curve. I don't remember, but I think we were on the first curve. And we like kind of curved out. They shuffled our Tashigi, which is what we wanted. Or not really wanted, but we didn't care about Tashigi going. But we had a wide board, and then we played the 3-cost Luffy. And then we like had 3 swings with the 3-cost Luffy and like tempoed them down. And but then after that, they actually didn't have another removal, so we just were going super tempo with our Sanjis, Luffy's, and then 3-cost Luffy boost. And it was in a position where they basically had to go for game, and we had Charleston in hand, so we had enough basically. So that was like a really big win because UP Luffy was like one of our worst or one of our tougher matchups.
Mm.
Then our 8th game was an Emu. We got the die roll. We actually got the die roll, and then our hand was like pretty good. And then we found a non-caster. It was like really, really easy game. But they played it well for what they could do. It's just that we opened kind of nuts versus them. It was probably our best hand of the day. And then we played against an ace. This game, or for our 9th game, we played against ace. This game was pretty crazy because it got to a point that this was a very long game. They actually had 2 cards left in their deck by the end of this game.
Oh wow.
And so, yeah, it was really crazy. It was our second ace of the day. And so, yeah, it was really crazy because like time was running low. Everything was going low. We were sitting on 2 Charleston in hand. And so, we are at a point where like we have to think of like, okay, do we go for game? Like what's happening? And then what actually ends up happening is that there's not enough time and we end up running out of time.
Mm.
But there was a few things that I was like thinking about doing, but I honestly like I don't know. It was like I kind of do feel like kind of bad for that game, even though like it was I was playing like fast, but yeah,
Winning
thinking
in
of the
time
times we
never
didn't actually
feels
see.
good, no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. It's like because it's interesting too. I actually would want to go back and see like what actually would happen in that game if I picked the correct line. Because what the key with that game was is that so if they block with their new gate,
Mm.
they only have 2 cards in life. That the ace trigger would actually activate, and then basically they would lose. I didn't even think about that. And so the correct line was to swing with everything low, and then basically use the last swing as unblockable. Um, because they couldn't block because they would lose. And then I didn't think about that, so I like kind of played fast, and then it came in a situation where they would have to push through with the Charleston's, and then basically the game didn't finish because they didn't have enough. So it was like but yeah, that was a crazy game. And then our last opponent was a Mihawk. We won the die roll. Yeah, we won the die roll, and then we had think a singular round table that game. Was pretty reasonable hand, I believe. It was a pretty reasonable, like pretty normal Mihawk game, I would say. Which is what you want on the game. They need to, make top cut. So yeah. That was like our day 1 games. And then as for top cut, our first opponent was a Mihawk, and they had dice over us because they're the 15th seed, we were the 18th seed. And we won 2-0. Yeah, both of the games were like, well, we went second twice because we didn't have dice. Honestly, don't remember too much of the game because, like, spoiler alert, the next two opponents were also Mihawks. I
They all
actually
run
don't remember
together.
too many games too much. Yeah, it's like all muddled together. It's like, what happened that first set of Mihawk games, but um, I do remember from what I like from yeah, what I remember. I do remember they played well, but I don't remember what happened in those games. And then my next opponent was top 16, and Samsung, and I do actually remember like those games the most. I ended in 2-1. They also had dice over me because they're the second seed. Yeah, they're the second seed.
Mm.
And the first game was extremely close. And then the second game was also extremely close, and the third game was also extremely close. But the first game, I remember I kept so yeah we played them in the Swiss, right? And I remember they played around round table. So my first hand, I would normally not keep it, but I was like, okay, they're gonna play around round table. I'll actually keep this hand. And it turns out they played around round table again, and so it worked out. In the second game, I actually mulliganed. I just happened to draw into two round tables. Like, oh man, this is not gonna go well. But luckily, I mean, it was only luckily because like we lost that game, but they did play into round table once. So it wasn't like probably wasn't terribly the hand's fault. Mostly just because they played it well. And the third game was very close. I actually probably won that game because I was swinging one over versus them like for most of the game.
From the
Because
Luffy buff,
I
or?
saw us no, just like in general.
Oh, okay.
Because and their deck lists are only winning 6 2Ks.
Ah.
And so basically from the start of the game, well, leader also naturally swings 6. And so basically for like your Usopp and the other things to swing 6, you only attach one Dawn. And the other thing is they're playing like the Law and the Bonnie. And so sometimes when like I didn't have I think like twice, when I either didn't like wanted extra Dawn for like leader, or yeah, for like leader protection. I would use the 7 swing for the Luffy or Sanji into their 6 cost character or 6k power character because one, if they have the 1/3 counter, they can't use on the character, but they can use on leader. So it's like actually more likely for them to have that than a 2k. Especially since I've been swinging the 6 this whole time. And so I kind of just abused that, and they were I don't remember how many 2ks they had early, but they didn't have that many 2Ks early, and so I was able to clear a lot of boards for like cheap 1K over swings, and then get their life low. And then at the end of the game, when they became a 7K leader, I still just swung 8 at their leader. So yeah, and that's like basically the main reason why I was able to get that one over them. And then top 8, we played against Mihawk again, and it couldn't be playing very similar lips to Samsung, and we did win that 2-0. They were, I believe they were a lower seed than us.
Yeah,
I want
that
to say they
sounds
were a
right.
lower
I believe
seed.
he squeaked in X2, so.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. So we did go first the first time, and we just had like a good hand. We only had like one round table, which we want because we know that he was probably also going to play around round table, so we only want one. And then but otherwise we had a good hand, which is like what we want versus Mihawk because we're like naturally favored into Mihawk. And then going on when we go first, and then we went second game 2 because they had dice, or because
They got the
we won the
pick, yeah.
game 1. And that game was a lot closer. The biggest thing with that game, I think they noticed, or that he noticed that we were taking life more aggressively, but he still He still only swung 5. We took both of the first 2 lives, but he was able to put more into like developing his board. Whereas I think the first game he was like swinging more aggressively, which on the first 2 swings we were gonna take anyways. So or at leader, and but it came down to the end where we probably could have survived another turn. We had like a Charleston hand and 2 life, and they had a wide board with a 9-cost Shanks. So they basically had like it was 2 laws and like a Bonnie and a 9-cost Shanks. But we get to like the second to last, I guess, technically last turn. The second to last turn, there was one 6K swing where they tossed 2 1Ks. So that's like already a ton of information. And then we got to the final turn, and they basically, well, they're at a 7K leader, and I just have a bunch of 8K swings, and so they toss. Well, I get them to 0 life, and they toss 2 1Ks. One, or I think might have been once or twice, but they have amount of cards in hand. I remember exact number because some of them were bricks. But I have to decide where to go. 14 to face. Actually, no. That turn they were not. It was the previous turn that they were 7K leader. This turn they were. Actually, maybe it wasn't the previous turn, but they were a 5K leader for this turn. And I had to go decide whether to go 14 face or decide to pass, or like not pass, but like not go for game. And I do decide to go for game. And they had exactly enough, or that exactly not enough for me to win, which is crazy. So yeah, that was a really good game too. And then our third opponent top cut was Purple Dofi. And we did lose this game. They, I think, actually don't remember. I think they had dice. Maybe I did have dice. I actually don't remember, to be honest.
It's okay.
Yeah. But those games were all like really close. It was actually, I think, those were the most I had to think for like the entire last 2 days, or those 2 days, because it's just like really I have a lot of decisions, I think probably for both decks to make, and both games like kind of diverged a lot. The first game was kind of crazy because it got to a point where he was like a few turns in a row he's just like was at no cards because that's the way I chose to take it, and but he still ended up winning that game because like he had a wide board, but because of like leader, like the Dofi effect, and then my board wasn't that wide, but he had no cards in hand. It was too tough to make it through because of the Dofi effect, and then like the tile characters and stuff. And then the second game, I went second. Actually, I did have the dice because I went second the first game, lost, and then I went second the next game. I did win that one, and then the final game was really close too. It was kind of like a combination where like of going like his hand being low, but also the wide board too. But it wasn't as hard. Like I didn't actually go as hard on like going for his hand size because at some point I just like started going face. But my board was quite low, and the final turn actually went down to me swinging 8, 8, and 9 with 2 5K characters and leader, and he needed his last life to be a 2K, which I know in retrospect. And he did. The last life was a 2K, and that's what happened to win. But those were great games too. And then in our third place match versus B-roll, that was also a great game. I had. Did I have dice?
He probably had dice. I don't. Did they use that for third? Because he was the highest seed. He finished 5th.
Yes, he did. He did have dice. Okay. Yeah. He had dice. He chose to go first. The first game, and then I did win that one. I won the next one. Those games were pretty close. I think mostly I was like very confident in that matchup because I just played like best of 7 with Skepis and King of the Hill like I don't know a week ago.
He mentioned
and those
he
are like
studied
very
that.
high level games. Yeah, Yeah, exactly. It's like, um, yeah, actually, it was really helped too because I actually did watch Skeptic's point of view too. So like, I knew my point of view. Like, I rewatched my game from my point of view, and then I rewatched Skepta's his game from his point of view, which his with his like thoughts on it. So I was like pretty confident in the matchup. And yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the list here. So, just for everyone who's not familiar, what this leader does is for one Dawn on your opponent's attack, you have to have 5 or less active Dawn. But when you do, you may rest any number of active Dawn up to one of your leader or Straw Hat crew type characters gains plus 2,000 power for each Dawn that was rested by this effect, effectively allowing him every turn to float up to 10,000 counter or 5 cards in hand, which can be an incredible resource of value because you continually, like anyone who's played Shanks knows how much just even whiffing one attack. So this leader tends to stay around and stabilize at 2 life. Sometimes it can be even be incredibly healthy and stay at 3 for some time because every card ideally is going to give him back Dawn, allowing you to counter out of swings for free continuously. With that being said, of course, excited to hear about your deck list. You can go ahead and we can kind of just jump in here and go through it card by card.
All right. So Nami, of course, good searcher. Here since day one. I would say she's actually technically our worst searcher, but she is still really good though. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
The best
Sharp
searcher.
is our best searcher by far. It just finds everything except for the one cost, or yeah, it's a one cost and lower. And yeah, it's really nice to be able to find like the Nami and round table. Considering that Nami can't find Nami or round table, and then like still be able to search your most important cards, which is like your Sanji and your Luffy. So yeah.
Searchable Roundtable is the GOAT. Now, I know that this is a card that everyone was kind of clamoring about in OG from the original days, but every time we enter into a tall meta, one cost blockers have an opportunity to shine. Incredibly excited to hear just what led you to playing the one of.
Yeah, so we play the one of this chopper because one, it's kind of insane. Because like when you have your Luffy on the field, it can't be KO'd. So you kind of have like a character or a blocker that can't be KO'd, and you play it for one. There's not that many things that actually interact with it unless you're playing like Mihawk or something. And even if there is, like they have to use resources to get rid of it, which are usually not before getting rid of for one cost. And that means that if they're using those resources there, that your counter that your leader naturally has is going to have more effect because they had to put the resources to get rid of blockers. So usually, like it evens out if they do choose to get rid of it. But also, it's just like most of the time you're just going to get the block with it. But blockers are like really insane with this deck because if you have a blocker, then it just makes your leader ability so much stronger. Because like one of the best ways for someone to play into it is like high swings, but it's like really bad to high swing when you have like blockers, you know. So another cool thing about the chopper is that with Nami, you like with the forecast Nami, you restand 5 Dawn. But playing the Nami is only 4 Dawn, and so a lot of times you need a way to use the extra Dawn. But one of the ways you can do that is by playing a searcher. But technically, playing a searcher doesn't actually do anything unless you like need to find something, right? But if you play this with the Nami, then it's like you get the 5 Dawn back, and you have the Nami still. So you have a double blocker, but you basically play the chopper for free because you need to play a Dawn worth to get 5 Dawn back. So but yeah, this card performed amazingly. Honestly, like actually every time I saw it, it was like great. The only reason why I don't play more of it is just because the brick, and there's just not that much space in the deck. So yeah.
That makes sense.
And Don Nami, my least favorite Nami in this deck, but it is still really good. The problem with the Don Nami is that a lot of times we play over it. And so that's the reason why we only play 2 of it, because a lot of times um, we either like would rather have something that actually does stuff. And like this card is great in the early game versus some decks, but honestly it's like really kind of like, like, so it takes a card out of hand, but if you actually need that many Dawn up in the early game, you're gonna lose the card out of hand just from like, being playing over it. So like sometimes it like goes out, but I know I'm talking bad about the card, but that's just because like it's like, it used to be considered like, must in regular Luffy, but I think now it's like, not as needed. But it's still good at 2 because in certain matches really helps your early game, and I think it's one of those cards that really help the spread, like with your being able to have the balance curve, because this card is like really goes back and forth with like the 4-cost 0, because if you go second, sometimes you want a way to make it smooth to on your 6 on turn, and so that's the way like I would describe this card basically. And then the one of Chopper, similar to the other Chopper, just there for a blocker. The main thing with this card is that it's a 6 blocker, which is a number of blockers I do like. The biggest difference with this one is that, well, of course, it's a 2K. You can play early. I didn't actually play early at all this week or that weekend. Something I've done before, but it's very rare. I usually just use a chump blocker too, but a lot of times it doesn't actually matter too much that it's like a more expensive chump blocker, because sometimes you do need like the Dawn, like to play a certain amount of Dawn anyways to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
And so like a lot of times it's either something that you could do, um, or it's something that like it wouldn't hurt, and but it's also has a 2K. If the 1-cost shopper had a 1K, I would play that over this card every day. But since it doesn't, we play this is basically the next best blocker.
Got it.
And Tashigi, I actually don't like this card, but you have to play it until we have Robin. It performed like all right. I mean, over time, like that, there's been tons of times when Tashigi's performed well. Over that specific weekend, it probably only helped in the Luffy matchup. In the UP Luffy matchup. But the problem with this one is just so much worse than Luffy and Robin, because it doesn't protect itself. And there's like so many decks that will just do it more than once in the game. Like Emu, and then like the trigger decks, even they can hit multiple kill triggers, and then the Chi will just be taken out by the first one. But it's still a nice 2K, and it did come up once, and I probably would have lost that game without it. So, but this card is probably never going back into my one-night decks because Nico Robin is here. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
The new Nico's actually insane. I remember when I saw a card, I was like, "There's no way they just made this." But
yeah, no, that card is insane.
cool. And then this. So this
Move.
is a new card in OP14 as well. And I actually didn't realize what this card did. And I played against your list just this past Monday, and I lost because they swung into my blocker beard for 1K more than I thought it was, because I forgot about this card. But I'm really intrigued to hear your thoughts on this card as well.
Yeah, this card is one of my favorite cards. It is funny that you brought that up, because so this card actually is like one of the biggest things that help this deck be better versus Ace. Just because also UP too, but UP is a little bit less because they actually can just bounce things over and over again, or like Mihawk you basically, or do like Red Rock and stuff. So, but they actually like want to do that. Ace doesn't actually usually want to do that too much, and so you play this, and then you boost your wide board, and it makes it a lot easier to swing into them. And I use actually Luffy in both matches versus Ace. Which the only reason why that's really relevant is because most people don't think like this is only there for decks that
Remove.
that KO, yeah, that move by KO. And that's actually not how I use this card. I mean, it is, of course. Like if it's like Emu, of course you play this card. It's good to freely protect any card that's getting KO'd. But additionally, it's like really nice into a lot of decks that that 1K boost is going to make a difference. And there's also times where actually this a lot in the week this or that weekend is sometimes you have like 2 or 3 Dawn that you need to restand, or 4 or 5 Dawn that you might need to restand, and like maybe it's a turn you want to get aggressive, and so this is a way to like be aggressive and then still be able to get that Dawn back because you're like boosting your field anyways, and then this is using up the Dawn that you need to get back. And then like especially on the later turns, because then you do it that turn, you boost your field, and the next turn it still has a boost, right? As long as I remove it. And then yeah, also with this Luffy, if you play it early, it can get insane amount of value because that 1K like each turn, if you're attacking like at good choke points, it's like it adds up. And so yeah, and then yeah, versus like Emu, this card just makes the matchup so much better. Versus Boa, even like the Rayleigh, actually all the yellow decks for most part. Is yeah, Rayleigh versus Luffy, Nami. It's like really important for those. And then yeah, I mean
That makes sense
this
to me.
card is probably this card is probably like the second MVP of the weekend, I guess.
Is Nami
You
the
probably can guess
first?
what the MVP of the weekend. Yeah,
That card's
Nami's
busted.
MVP of the weekend.
Well, let's work our way there, shall we?
Yes. Zoro is also a lesser common. Used to obviously be a staple in OP13 when we didn't have Usopp, but I still like this card in OP14. This card is really nice with the Luffy, because it's a card that just it like sticks to the board. Unless they're playing removal, it just stays there. And then if it's carry removal, it probably still stays there because of Luffy. And even if it like even versus removal things, it is kind of nice that this card basically only plays for 2 Dawn because you get the Dawn back, and so a lot less expensive than like the Usopp being bounced the first turn that's played. Um, and then the other niche thing is that the Luffy needs to tap something active, and sometimes like in the late game you'll have like everything will be rested besides the Luffy, and then if you have to tap the Luffy, then like it would obviously get removed. With this card, you would just always have it active. Yeah. Usopp. Actually, side note with Usopp and the Luffy, or not Usopp and the Zoro,
Yeah.
is that the only matchup that I actually like Zoro more than is versus Emu. Which I just thought about that with just going with the into Usopp, but because Usopp, one of his only weaknesses is that he gets removed, but the effect is kind of insane just to get 2 Dawn back every turn. But yeah, his only weakness is that sometimes you have to leave him active because he'll get removed, which is like fine versus some decks, but some decks, or against some decks, you really want to be aggressive. And Usopp, sometimes you can't really do that because like losing a character is like really not something you want to do on regular Luffy. So especially versus it's mostly because like minus power things too, because it's such a low power if it gets minus by anything.
That makes sense.
And then Nami, the go of the deck. This card's insane. Blocker, rest 2, basically a tiny Hody, and you get 5 Dawn back, which is 10k counter in this deck. I think I played this card like almost every game, and it definitely won me quite a few games. I mean, there's like certain games where like you literally need the rest 2 and the blocker and the 5 Dawn, or else
And
you
10k
would not be
counter.
in the position.
You can
Yeah.
Hody, push lethal, and then 10k counter plus a blocker.
Yeah, and then there's like those games where you just like open 3 Nami, it's like, oh, I can just ignore these blockers and just keep going face and then not even care about dying.
Yeah.
So yeah, the card's just insane.
And she fits with the
100%
Luffy.
recommend.
the six card. We could talk about that there too. But she fits in perfectly, and then you still get 5 back. Like it's incredible.
Yes. Oh, the other funny thing about this card too is that with the Luffy, it's a 4 cost, so it still gets a boost. So sometimes you actually get to swing with this card too. And it's really funny.
Mm.
Especially if you like have a second Nami, you're like board is full. I think I did this like twice. Your board is full and you have like a second Nami, so you're gonna play over your Nami anyway. So you just swing with the Nami and then you play over it. It's super funny.
Oh, that that's something. Love that. Okay.
And then we got the Sanji, one of the OG best cards. I mean, get 2 Dawn back, and then you get 1 Dawn every turn. It's kind of insane. It's probably the big best of the 7 drops, which is only competing with Luffy. But usually you just want to get as many Sanjis and Luffys on the board as possible, and Sanji is the better one of the two. And yeah, he kind of carries, but also with Usopp, it kind of sometimes is good just to have like 2 Usopps in him, and then you just get 5 Dawn back too. Um, and yeah,
Sounds good.
and Luffy is really crazy because it gets you 4 Dawn back, and so you basically only pay it for 2 on play, which makes it like really crazy versus the bouncers, because you basically don't lose that much as long as you play like as long as you actually use that Dawn for like making board. If you use the Dawn for swinging, it's like less so, but if you use the Dawn for like actually playing more characters, then it's like a lot better into things like Jozu and I guess it's mostly just Jozu, but or actually the Sables that Bobo's been playing recently,
Yep.
also relevant for that too. Um, and yeah, the double attack comes up versus basically all of the yellow decks. You can also make it come up too, for times where like you'll swing at their life with only the Luffy and then swing board with everything else. And then which is like a way to force the double attack to be relevant. Which does happen a few times, but obviously sometimes you don't want to swing board. But I do swing board quite a bit, so if it makes sense.
Got it.
And yeah. So you got the 1 of 9 Casero. Actually did play it like I think I played Listen to the Chopper, but it was probably the second most used one of. Um, there's just matchups where you search and you see this card and you're like, okay, I have to take this. And then there's matchups like Croc and Mihawk that you just can never take it because it'll just get frozen.
Mm.
And then like matchups for like Ace and I guess other blue decks really, you usually don't want to take it because it's too risky. I didn't play against any of the blue decks. But it was pretty good versus Dofi and Emu, which is 2 of the matches where you want to take it. Yeah, I've see every time that you like or against every matchup that you want it, but like we're already like accepting that we don't need the 9 Kasura, so if we don't find it, it's like whatever. But for this match that we do want to find it, we're always like happy to take it. So
Got it. And now this,
and
this
top of
you pumped this.
yes. Yes. This card is amazing. Well my favorite thing about this card is just because Nami and this card can search each other. And so the amount of times where I would just like actually there's one time where I got through 5 down just by searching with Nami and this card just taking each other. Um and it's just super funny because sometimes you just like want to find a specific card and you're like you have the extra Dawn because you need to like pay Dawn to get the Dawn back. And so you're just like, okay, well, it's basically free searchers. And so you're like, okay, if I find something here, then I'll find it. If not, I'm just searching, right? And there's these amount of times where like it actually is pretty useful, especially if you find a 4 cost Nami or actually a lot of times it is to find like the chopper or the other chopper blocker because like they're both searchable by both of them. And you just need to find one of them as a blocker. Or you just find a Nami. Sometimes also find a 3 cost Luffy too. But yeah, also in general, this searcher is just really nice because it can search the Namis. And so like in the early game, you can find the one cost Nami as well, which actually does come up because sometimes you'll have like a second searcher that is either already Nami or the Garp, and you're like, okay, I actually don't need this Nami search, so having the early game of the one cost Nami is nice. Or sometimes you'll also just have a good hand already anyway, so you don't need the search immediately. And so yeah, and then also just being able to find four cost Nami, which the other Nami unfortunately can't do, which is four cost Nami is like probably the best card in the deck. So just being able to find four cost Nami makes it like the second best searcher in the deck.
Got it. Did you ever get the trigger and it just been huge? Did that ever come up in any of your games?
Yeah, it triggered like twice. There was actually one time where I was because this is actually the only trigger in the deck. Or actually no, it's not the only trigger in the deck. But it's the only
Well, still
trigger
good.
in the deck that we use like in the early game. And there was one time where I actually like was so used to saying like I'm the or like you looking at the life and saying no trigger that I actually looked at it and said no trigger. I was like, oh wait, this has a trigger. It was like, oh well. It didn't really matter that much because I actually like had the Dawn to use next turn, but it was kind of funny.
Got it. Got it. Cool. And then, of course, Mihawk, anti-missile.
Anti-missile for Mihawk. Yeah, I mean this card is like really insane for Mihawk and Ace. I actually think it's more needed for Ace almost because it's like actually helps the Ace matchup a ton. The Mihawk matchup it obviously helps a ton, but the only thing with the Mihawk matchup is that if they like super play around it, sometimes you actually just like beat them without it because they're playing around it, which is funny. But yeah, also like actually is crazy versus almost most of the decks just because the way Luffy is. Because like the smaller their board is, the better you are because you have the free 10k counter.
Mm.
And so like even if you just like round table an 8k power card or like a 7k power card just to guarantee the kill, it's like really strong. Actually, I guess like purple Dofi's perfect example. A round table is like really good versus purple Dofi just because you want their board to be smaller. And like versus like Jinbei to just clear their 7k buy. Well, usually actually just the 10 cost Jinbei, but it's like basically every deck it actually comes up and it's like really good versus, which is kind of interesting. Actually, not every deck. It's terrible versus Emu, but every deck except for Emu actually comes up against, and it's like kind of insane. Honestly, especially considering we weren't playing OP13,
Yeah,
and Mihawk is like the perfect storm to be like, okay, we have the perfect excuse to play this card. And it's like actually like really good for the deck.
it's a really good. It's really good when it's really good into one deck. Like I've also played it against a number of things. I played this against Sabo, and I just went minus 10,000 on Dragon, and I was like, I'll swing -1 into it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, the other thing too is it's really nice because we play a bunch of searchers, and like this card does so well with searchers. Um, yeah, so
yep,
I really love this card, of course.
yep.
I'll
Garp
miss
makes
it,
this even better
sadly.
too. Like, because it is the only
Oh
way to
yeah,
search
Garp.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Dead Man's Game. Um, is interesting because we kind of don't need it, but we kind of do need it because it's very needed for the ace. Or it's not needed, but it's like really nice in the ace matchup. And it's also just like nice to have a fifth option to rest two things. Even like versus Emu for the other decks that play a bunch of blockers, just have a second thing that can rest things. Similar to Nami. Um, but yeah, honestly, I would probably always play this card, but I don't like this card that much anymore. Because we have Nami. Uh, yeah, because you'd almost always rather just play Nami unless it's like the end of the game versus Ace.
Mm.
Um, but it did win me like one or two games, so
Yeah, this
I
card
wouldn't complain too much.
also made me lose on Monday. Like they had no cards in hand, takes their last life, and they draw, and this was their last life. The one if they were playing your list, I was like, great.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. Like, it's an insane top deck too. The other thing, so the reason why I'm so down about this card too, which I guess I should explain, is that this is like the worst. So 1/3 counter in this deck is actually like the worst kind of counter because your leader effect already does a 2k counter for free, and so this uses the resource. and then it only gives you 3 back. So it's basically a 1k counter, but it's only usable for leader, which makes it the worst like counter in the deck, basically.
That makes
And for a
sense.
normal deck, that would be like, 1 through counter would be good, but for this deck, it's like almost a brick.
Got it. And then finally, this card. This card's annoying.
This card, yeah, this card's insane. Yeah, basically 10k counter, for free, or not for free. For 2 cards, you get 10k counter, basically. And then the trigger is also kind of crazy because most people don't realize that it's actually the reverse of like Luna, that you're supposed to swing with your leader, like earlier, because when you're going for lethal, because the only card that can tap things in our deck is actually Charleston, which can tap leader. Most people don't know that, and so it didn't actually come up. Actually, it technically would have came up, but I decided to keep the Charleston.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't actually get to use the tap leader trigger. But the actual effect is really crazy too because if you have like 1 or 2 of these in hand, it's really easy to bait people to go for game too with this card because they'll be like, man, he's at 1 life and like he has uh 1 life and like normal size of hand size. Like, how would he ever survive? And then you just like, well, I have Charleston, but they don't know that, and then they go for game and then they like tap out and everything, and you're just like, well, I guess Charleston saved me here.
It's insane.
And
It's it's so much counter for free.
yeah, it's such insane counter. And like versus a prime example of this card like being insane, like versus Ace, when they Roger, they have to commit basically, and um like really huge for that because Charleston is great once they commit their Dawn. Before they can commit their Dawn, it's a little bit awkward sometimes because then you have to like figure out how you want to sequence your things. But once they commit their Dawn, it's like really easy to like sequence everything.
Hmm.
Because yeah, the thing with this card is that your leader effect goes first. So when you get restand those Dawn, you have to wait until another swing to actually use the Dawn you got back.
Got it.
And so yeah, there's actually a few opponents that didn't realize that. And so yeah, and it is interesting because like obviously after the game I would tell them, but during the game you can't like they can't just like, oh wait, how does this card work? They can't just ask the judge, be like, read the card and be like, oh wait, that they have to like think for themselves that like that's how that would work.
Hmm.
And like most people don't realize without it happening that that's how it's supposed to work.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So, I guess I'm sure anyone who's unfamiliar with your work, I of course have seen you play in a number of Chinose Cups where you won or were in top 4. You were absolutely dominating there with this list. What led you to playing this deck in Nats? Was it the meta call on Mihawk and how just this deck is incredibly good into Mihawk, or what was the driving force behind bringing Red Green Luffy, or some people might know it as Mexican Luffy?
Um, yeah, so I started playing this deck in OP13. I was playing more of Lim and a little bit of Ace in OP13. And so, but I had like a decent amount of game on Red Luffy, and I was like, okay, this deck is like kind of good, but it's definitely missing something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Nami. It was
OP14
missing
stuff was
Nami.
revealed. Yeah, I was missing. Well, also the Usopp was like another huge thing that like, well, and the Luffy actually, all of the support that I
Yeah,
got was
yeah.
like absolutely insane. I think if it doesn't get any of those, or if it misses a single one of those, I think I wouldn't have played it, to be honest. Um, but yeah, once that got released, I actually still wasn't like at the start of format. I wasn't even convinced on Luffy. But then like a few weeks passed, and I just was doing really good in Choice Cups. I played a ton of games. And yeah, I ended up getting to like rank 2 on the leaderboard. I guess I actually decided to play Ring Luffy before that. I think the main thing is that once I played like I think I was like 150 games in, I realized that I think that Ring Luffy actually has an amazing spread into the format. Because a lot of people think that's just like just because it's like a meta call into Mihawk, but I actually think that like Regan Luffy for me, it felt like I was really good into like everything that wasn't blue, but like even saying it wasn't everything that's not blue, by everything that's not blue, I really specifically mean like removal Jinbei and Sanji and UP Luffy. Everything else I felt favored in, or not, not favored into, but like 50-50 or favored into. And because, yeah, based on my testing, it was just like doing extremely well into a lot of the meta. So I was like really confident to Mihawk, Ace, and Emu. And I was like extremely confident to Yellow decks. And so like that was like most, I mean that's like most of the
Most
format
of the spread,
obviously.
yes.
And so I had to be like, well, am I scared of like the UP Sanji? Because that's like the really, really bad matchup is UP Sanji.
Mm.
And I was like, well, no one's probably gonna bring that. And like I didn't see too many UP Sanjis. Jinbei was kind of surprising, but I think I only faced one Jinbei. That was like on super heavy removal, luckily. Because I think the other Jinbei wasn't as hard of removal. And then the UP Luffy matchup, actually I don't think was. I think it was like interesting because UP Luffy is just a matchup that I think I'm always scared of on any deck, just because like if you play enough games, you'll see how many games or a decent amount of those games the UP Luffy will high roll you, and you'll just get scarred by that. Because
Yeah.
like there's nothing you can do when they high roll you. So
Yeah, when
yeah,
they when
but
when they see it all, there's literally nothing you can do. Like, oh, I guess I just lose. It's like, oh, I'll triple ramp into Sanji Mihawk, remove everything you just did, and then I'll Sanji Roger, and then I'll Roger, and then they're like, and then I'll go 9 9 9 9. And you're like, ugh.
exactly. It's just like, oh well, I guess that was a good game.
Yeah, I guess I'll die.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they make you wait
Um,
20 turns to die because you can't kill them, but like
yeah,
they can't kill you.
yeah,
Cool.
that yeah, it's insane. But
With
yeah, I was pretty confident with this deck. So
yeah. I mean, you obviously have showed you killed. You've been killing it, so you love to see that. With that in mind, of course, EBO3 is right around the corner. Do you think that this deck still holds up with the addition, of course, of the new yellow cards, but also VV and other decks possibly entering the mix? And would you make any changes to the list as it is now?
yeah, so the main thing is that 3 cost Nika Robin we will get, or we're getting, and Hero and Battles, which is around the same time EBU3, very very soon, right?
Mm.
Um, and that replaces Tashigi, and uh, probably some spots of Luffy, mostly because the one of the decks, I think the only thing, so like the yellow matchups is like fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nami is interesting, but like Nami matchups also like should be fine. But the Boa and the yellow Luffy is fine. And then the Sanji is like the biggest thing that we're scared of, just because of the EBO3 with combination of EBO4. The deck is just like kind of insane. And Grab Blades is literally Luffy's worst nightmare. And so they can like proc the Robin and then Grab Blade afterwards, and so that
Yeah.
Robin doesn't matter. Um, and so that's like the main concern with the next format. But the good news is the Robin does help a decent amount of our old matchups that were that did use removal. And VV I think shouldn't be too bad. I actually play VV myself, but I don't think it'll be too bad for Luffy. Um, and so yeah, I do think there's also a world where you play less round table. I'm not really 100% sure on what I want to do with that, because Luna I think is going to be really really good. Um, and yeah, so there's like so many tech options with Luffy too. So
Mm-hmm.
I know I'll be changing things around for the EBO3 EBO4 format. But yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And then, so of course, we kind of talk about blue as a whole, and then Nico Robin making that a lot better. Of course, we have Tashigi in the meantime. So, with that being said, what do you think is this deck's best matchup? Is it Mihawk? Is it anything else? And what is the worst matchup? So, if you could have one deck sit across from you, what would that be? And if you could have one deck that you just dodge the whole day, what would that be?
Let's see. The first question is kind of hard. Because it is actually it's not Mihawk, but I would probably say it's probably Yellow Luffy.
Okay.
Yeah, probably Yellow Luffy. One of the yellow decks, probably. I guess Yellow Luffy might be too far, or it might be like too unmeta though. I guess of like the top three, I would probably say it's either Mihawk or Emu. Yeah, I would almost want to say Emu, but the problem is like it's too much of like a dice dependence. Because we're still, in my opinion, we're like still pretty favored when we go first,
Hmm.
but we're just like super favored when we go second. So like if you combine them, then it's like I
You're
would prefer
golden.
Emu. But if like you go to a tournament, right, and you just happen to only get first Emu, then your win rate's gonna be lower than like versus Mihawk. You get the lesser preferred curve the whole tournament. So right. So
Mm.
yeah. And then for worst matchup, that's like an easy question. UP Sanji, all day, every day. Don't want to see that deck.
No, I don't think anyone like that deck is actually a menace as soon as EB hits. Like Reiju arguably shouldn't exist. uh
That I mean, it's insane. Like
there's
free
a
Red Rock or Grab Blade.
there's a reason nobody has ever been able to Red Rock and Graph Blade in the same turn before. There's a reason. you know? And establish two bodies. I digress.
And the sub with two bodies.
With that being said, it seems like you really like to go first. For anyone who's wanting to play this deck, do you think how are you really prioritizing? Are you just taking your opponent's curve, or are you like and you're choosing first when it doesn't matter, or how do you really approach going first or second?
Um, I would say for the most part, this deck is actually a take your opponent's curve deck because the first Mihawk is just because they want to go first. Versus Emu, we want to go second because they want to go second. Versus Ace, we want to go second because they want to go second. But the natural curve for this deck is second, but it kind of isn't actually like it's not a huge difference between first and second. Um, and so like versus if I haven't played against a deck before, I will take second. Um, but versus like every deck for the most part is just based on the opponent. Um, so yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Well, do you have any final words of advice for anyone who's wanting to pick up or is considering playing this deck either right now or in EBO3 format?
Yeah. So I guess a overall words of advice for this deck, just be confident, be aggressive. Blockers are important, and don't be too aggressive with defending life. I think that's a big thing that I noticed with um, working Luffy players that I do not really like too much is like first life you kind of don't want to like overprotect for it. Like if you don't have to use your leer, like if you can protect with just your leer ability, that's like fine.
Mm.
Like generally if you can just protect someone with your leer ability, just do it. Because also like if you just take a life and you could use leer ability, that gives them a lot of information anyways. You just chose not to do it. Um, but but if you would have to use a card from your hand early, even if you do have the leer ability up, I usually don't like to toss cards early for a deck because you really just want to acquire cards in your hand and then build a board and protect that board. And it's easier to protect your board when you're at 2 or 3 or even 1 life, like because ultimately if you want to protect someone from dying, it's a lot easier because you have the other resources like Charleston, and then it's really hard for them to get to your life anyways once you have your 2K or once you have your leer ability because you can just use the leer board and then just start tossing cards from your hand. And so you just don't want to toss cards from your hand early. And then it also just helps just to find your pieces because your pieces are really important. You only have your Sanji, your Luffy, and your Usopp for the most part. Like your actual swinging characters that give you your Don back and stuff. And kind of want to build a whiteboard of those characters. So like if you starve yourself in a sense, sometimes it'd be harder to get those pieces. So yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rick Master Flash, and congrats once again. If there's anyone you would like to shout out, anything you would like to plug, I do know you are a content creator. Now is your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so I'm Reef Master Flash that stream on Twitch, YouTube, and I have a Medify that I currently have the Regular Luffy guide on, and I do coaching for. Yeah, and obviously shout out to all my Children's Cup believers and Children's Cup competitors. Always have a great time there. So
Yeah, I'm always jealous. He always hits me up, and I'm like, I will be a part of this one day. I promise you. I was like, but today's not that day. And then anytime he does the weekend ones, it just doesn't work. But yeah, he's incredible. I've seen your work there, and then of course I've seen you over there on Twitch as well. I'll include all of his links here, and then I'll have his YouTube channel tagged. So definitely go check him out. He's an incredible human being overall. And again, congratulations and good luck in Japan.
thank you. I'll try my best.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. I'm banking on it.